Yeah. Straight up. Let's go. Welcome to Straight Up TJAY. Tap in, sit back, press replay. Been locked in with the Saints on a weekday. Now we talking every sport, every big play. Years on the grind, now we level up the view. From the dome to the world, get a better look at you. No script.
Hey, what's going on? It is yours truly, TJ Jones, and welcome to another edition of the Straight Up TJAY Podcast. We talk about some of the hottest topics in all of sports, and we also keep it 100 about your favorite team, the New Orleans Saints. Thank you so much for tuning in, making the Straight Up TJAY Podcast a part of your listening and viewing pleasure. On this edition, we're going to be talking about the New Orleans Saints and talk about some of the glaring holes they still have on the team offensively and defensively. And also I want to talk a little bit about Jackson Dart, man. Jackson Dart getting a little bit of criticism over the weekend for a decision that he made. We're going to be talking about that too. But of course, you can always hit that like button, subscribe to the channel. Very interactive here on the Straight Up TJAY Podcast. Special shout out to everybody in the chat right now. Really do appreciate it. Not going to be a long show. Not going to be a long show at all. We're going to probably try to keep this thing between 15 to 20 minutes. But I did want to get on. Hope everybody had a good Memorial Day. I got to tell y'all, man, I didn't do anything at all of any significance over the weekend, man. I was at the crib. I was just chilling. I cleaned the house up, barbecued a little bit. But while people are filing in, I got this brand new thing that I just love to do now. and that's swing the bat in a batting cage, man. So anybody knows my 7-year-old son Paxton, he started playing baseball, and I ended up investing in his batting cage to put in our backyard. They can help him work on his swinging. And we got the little ball dispenser and stuff like that. Pause. And man, it just been so much fun, man, since we put that batting cage up. I've been out there every day. But that's what I was doing like throughout the weekend, on top of, making hamburgers and hot dogs or what have you. But all in all, I hope everybody had a good Memorial Day. But let's go ahead and get into it. Let's talk a little bit about the New Orleans Saints. Let's talk a little bit about the offense as well as the defense. But let's go ahead and start with the defense, the glaring hole on the Saints defense. Now, the New Orleans Saints seem like they're trying to get younger defensively, seem like they're trying to turn the page. We know that Demario Davis no longer with the team. As of right now, Cam Jordan is still an unrestricted free agent. He hasn't signed with the New Orleans Saints. You got Alontae Taylor. He's no longer with the team. He has moved on. And now you're looking at these young core players, the guys that are 26, 27 years old to lead the charge. Players like Chase Young and Carl Granderson, Brian Brzee, Devon Godshaw, right? Some of the older statesmen or the elder statesmen of the team. And even they are relatively young. And, you look at this defense, you look, from, the front end, the linebackers, the secondary. I think that you have to look at the secondary to find a glaring hole in the Saints defense. I think that the defensive line should be okay. It seems like they got a good rotation going. I'm interested to see what second round pick Christian Miller is going to be on the interior, as well as Vernon Broughton, who was coming into his own before he got injured, man. I mean, you got Carl Granderson, right? I mentioned Chase Young. Like, these are going to be your edge rushers. Who's going to step up and be able to provide some level of production alongside those two guys? But when you look at the secondary, because of Alontae Taylor and him not being with the Saints anymore, him moving on to Tennessee, you got some guys that played in the secondary that have never played slot corner a day in their life. Like, they haven't played at all. And you have to wonder, where's the production going to come from? Now, everybody's looking at Julian Blackmon. He's going into his second year as a member of the Saints. Of course, we know he only played in one game last season. And I think he tore his labrum and he had to get surgery and he was out for the season. He's a really talented player, and everybody will tell you that. But the best ability is availability. And if he was to be in the secondary, that's not his primary position. Like, he's a free safety. So you're asking him to play more in the slot. I don't think I trust that. I don't think I would trust that if I am the New Orleans Saints. I think they need a rotation. It seems like they're happy with Kool-Aid McKinstry on one side and Quincy Riley on the other side as your number one and number two corners. But you have to wonder what is going to happen when it comes to the slot corner. I think it's probably going to be one of those rotational things, right? I think that Lorenzo Styles is probably going to be, a part of that rotation. I think that you're probably going to see guys like Terrell Burgess being a part of that rotation. I think you're going to see some guys like fill in, but I just think that you need someone to solidify that position. Now, there is a cornerback that is out there by the name of Kenny Moore, who was really doggone good as a slot corner throughout his career. He ended up being released by the Indianapolis Colts. This guy is an all-pro from his position, multi-time Pro Bowler. So that could be someone that the Saints could look at. Maybe he can be able to fill that void. Maybe he will want to go back to playing with his former teammate in Julian Blackmon. So that would be a good find for the New Orleans Saints. But to me, defensively, I think you have to look at the secondary. Some people will look at the linebacker room. You have a young Danny Stutzman, Pete Warner. What are you going to get from him? And then you got Caden Ellis coming back, trying to be that, new version of DeMario Davis, which to me could never be replicated, but a really good, solid, productive player in Caden Ellis, who played really well for the Atlanta Falcons throughout his time there. So, you would say linebackers, but I think that you have some guys that are veterans that understand what they need to do, where they need to be. So I wouldn't expect for that to be an issue. I just think that you have to look at the secondary. You need depth, and you need somebody that can solidify that slot corner position. We'll take a break right there, and I'll look at some of your comments and questions in regards to what do you think the Saints' biggest glaring hole on defense is? I mentioned the secondary. I would love to hear from you. What do you all think? Dalton says, this might sound crazy, but I think the Saints should trade Carl Granderson. I think he's more of a 4-3 defensive end. Yeah, I mean, I think more it's crazy, Dalton, because when he first came into the league, he would have, struck us all as a 3-4 edge rusher. I just think that he just needed a little bit of time to make that adjustment. Like when you come into the league and you're so used to a certain position, and you're probably just asked to put your hand on the ground and get after the quarterback. But now when you're running a 3-4, man, you're asked to stand up. Sometimes you have to play coverage. So it's a little bit of a transition for him. So I'm not ready to give up on Carl Granderson just yet. I don't think the Saints are going to consider trading him unless it just seems like it's just not, going in the right direction. He started off pretty hot to start the season. I mean, for about 3 weeks, he led the NFL in sacks. But he just started to kind of taper off a little bit. But he just has to get consistent. He has to just be a little bit more focused. And I think he'll be okay, man. I don't think they need to trade Grando just yet. I think that, maybe it's just an adjustment from going from a 4-3 to a 3-4. Because you have to remember, Dalton, when he first came into the league, man, he was undersized. Like he had to gain some weight as a defensive end. And I just wonder, if he would have stayed at the size he was at and the Saints were running a 3-4, you probably would have seen him be a little bit more faster, a little bit more instinctive. But maybe that weight that he put on, it kind of changes the way that you play the game a little bit. We still hope McCoy can get through more than half a season. He's on my watch list for sure. Yeah, we'll get a little bit more into Eric McCoy as we focus on the offensive side of the football. But yeah, man, I just hope that Eric McCoy can be able to hold up the entire season. I mean, I was listening to him, talk to Teron Armstead on Teron Armstead's podcast, and he talked about him being in the best shape that he's been in years, dealing with all those injuries. He hasn't been able to get ahead of the curve like he is now. So hopefully, man, there's some things that he worked on. Like to me, I don't think that this is something that, could just be fixed like with the snap of a finger. Yeah, you can change your nutrition. Yeah, you can change, some of the habits that you have. Maybe invest a little bit more in your lower extremities. Maybe some yoga or something like that. But nothing is really going to protect you from being injured, right? I mean, maybe you could stretch a little bit more. Maybe if you didn't stretch, you would have got injured. But at the end of the day, injuries just occur in the National Football League. That just comes with the territory. Says I wouldn't put Julian Blackmon in a slot cornerback. I wouldn't put him primarily in a slot corner position. I wouldn't do it primarily. But I just think that's the Saints need somebody that can consistently serve that role. Missed you last week on the roundtable, TJ. Yeah, man. I think they end up having a show around the same time. Yeah, it was Paxton's birthday and he had a baseball game. So I didn't get a chance to be on the show that day because I was actually at Paxton's baseball game. And and it was also his birthday. His birthday was last Tuesday. My boy made 7 years old, man. So I wasn't gonna miss his last baseball game of the season or his birthday. It is crazy he's still on the roster. I don't know who we're referring to. Were we talking about Julian Blackmon or who we talking about? Who are you shocked that they're still on the roster? It says, like I said, I either want Jordan or Bosa. Yeah, I mean, but who would the Saints go with? More than likely it'll be Cam Jordan. I mean, Joey Bosa is younger than Cam, and he can get active like Cam can, but he just can't stay healthy. At least, that Cam can stay healthy. He can, he's going to be where he needs to be. And then on top of that, you can count on him being in the game. Aaron, thank you very much for $2. Says Snead has been cleared. Why not give him a look? Snead who? Willie Snead? I know we ain't talking about no Willie Snead in 2026, man. Willie Snead probably about my age. we talk about we can't be talking about Willie Snead, man. Hold on, cause I know Willie Snead got to be in his 30s. I know, homie got to be 33. We can't be talking about the same Willie Snead, but I did hear that Willie Snead is working with Sean Payton in his coaching staff. Oh, okay. I was about to say the Jerry is okay. Now, okay, that makes sense. That makes sense. I'm about to say, man, ain't no way we talk about Willie Snead 2020. L'Jarius Sneed, yeah. Okay. Yeah, L'Jarius Sneed, okay. As we know, like he started his career with the Chiefs, had, all pro, end up getting a big payday with the Tennessee Titans, didn't pan out, and if I'm not mistaken, I think he might, let me see, make sure. He might be on the street. Let me make that. He probably is on the street. Let's see. All right, so he's 29 years old. Yeah. All right, so yeah, he's a unrestricted free agent right now. All right, he's 29 years old. He just turned 29. Of course, everybody know he went to Louisiana Tech. He's from Minden, Louisiana. The 4th-round pick. I mean, it's been a lot of ups and downs. A lot of ups and downs for L'Jarius Sneed, man. Once he got that bread, things were never the same after that, man. It wasn't the same, but I mean, I wouldn't mind kicking the tires on him. I don't think this, but if you're asking me who should the New Orleans Saints go after out of L'Jarius Sneed and Kenny Moore, I'm going with Kenny Moore. Because Kenny Moore is a dominant and has been a dominant slot corner, right? He's 30 years old. He'll be 31. That's the only difference. L'Jarius Sneed just turned 29. So, I mean, if you're looking for somebody to kind of fill that void, why maybe you develop a younger guy like Lorenzo Styles or, one of these other guys that could play in a slide like like I said, like Styles or like Ward, like that would be, you know what I'm saying? Like that'll be a plus, but I mean, I would roll with Kenny Moore before I roll with L'Jarius Sneed. If I needed maybe an outside guy, I'd probably bring him in. That sack that he put on Jackson Dart was unnecessary for him to call. That was a regular sack. Yeah, that was pretty much some nonsense. But let's go ahead switch gears, man, because I do want to talk a little bit about the Saints offense. What's the glaring hole in the Saints offense? I think it's pretty obvious when you look at it. It's the right guard position, and I don't do these shows to try to pick on Cesar Ruiz. I just don't. But Cesar Ruiz, I believe, is going into his 8th season or something, 7th season. And I mean, I like what I'm hearing. You know, I heard the interview when he was on Toronto Armstead's podcast, and he's talking about he want people to doubt him. He want to make skeptics out of believers. Look, man, I don't want to sit up here and just bash Cesar Ruiz. I want to see him turn a corner. I would love to see Cesar Ruiz live up to his full potential as a member of the offensive line. But the only thing that you can really say about Cesar Ruiz that has been positive is the fact that he's been more available than anybody on the offensive line. And I think that's probably why people like look at him the way that they do, and he stands out so much because he has been the most available player out there on the offensive line, and he gives you way more opportunity to see what he has not been doing, and he makes you miss the other person around, right? Man, the Saints need some help on the offensive line. Like those are recipes for disaster. Cesar Ruiz, I just hope that he does turn a corner. But as of right now, you got to look at the right guard position. And I'm just going to throw this little caveat out here as well. They need attrition. That is what they need. Like that, the biggest glaring hole has been the lack of durability, you know what I'm saying? Or, you know, the type of durability that you have. That has been a glaring hole on the Saints defense. The offense, because the offense, when you look at it on paper, like when guys are available, when you got your team fully intact, I mean, you got yourself a good offensive line. I think Kelvin Banks is really good. You know, David Edwards is good. Eric McCoy, one of the best when he's healthy. Cesar Ruiz, the only question mark, and Tali Fuaga. I think that you're going to see a much better version of him. The guy been dealing with back issues and lower extremity issues all last season. And I just think that it affected his game. But I just think with a full off season and, you know, getting yourself into shape, getting your body right, I think that the Saints can have themselves a really good offensive line. But Cesar Ruiz is going to have to step it up. And I think if you look at the draft and how the Saints were able to draft Jeremiah Wright out of Auburn, you know, and got these other guys that are on the line, they didn't get rid of Dylan Radins or any of these other guys that they signed last season. They brought these guys back. They want to push Cesar Ruiz. And I'm hoping that Jeremiah Wright can push Cesar Ruiz to a point where Cesar Ruiz tries to elevate his game. And if he can't, then you might want to just slide Jeremiah Wright or whatever right guard that you have into that position. The clock is ticking on Cesar Ruiz. And, you know, there's that old saying, when a person shows you who they are, you got to believe them. I don't want to believe that Cesar Ruiz is just terrible, right? I want to see this guy live up to his full potential, and hopefully they can do that. Now, I look around, you know, the running back room. I think the Saints got some stability at the running back position. Look, I still think that Alvin Kamara has something left in the tank. Travis Etienne, I think that he's going to be a really good feature back for the Saints. I like Devin Neal. I think that he's a young, promising guy. You got Kendre Miller still on the team. If he stays healthy, you know, he can be productive in the running back room. Tight ends, the Saints have elevated their tight end room. You know, you're bringing in Noah Fant, a guy who can block as well as catch. You got Juwan Johnson, more of your pass catching tight end. Oscar Delp, a hybrid type guy. So you got yourself some talented guys, you know, in the tight end room. And that wide receiver, the Saints went out there and they got themselves a different cast of characters, wide receivers of all shapes and sizes, and guys that have abilities to be able to make plays. We know about Chris Olave coming off a 1,100-yard season with 9 touchdowns. Jordan Tyson, an 8 overall pick for the Saints. He's going to come in. Then you got Bryce Lance out there. You know, you got him. You got Barrion Brown, who's going to be returning kicks. Right? I mean, the New Orleans Saints have some really talented guys on this team, and they're able to try to, you know, give Tyler Shough some weapons, right? That's what you want. That you want to have some weapons in order for your quarterback to be able to thrive, and you want to have offensive line to keep him upright so he can be able to do his job. But you have to look at the offensive line, the right guard position. I think that's the biggest of the biggest glaring hole on the Saints offense. All right. And finally, the final topic I'm going to talk about, I apologize. I didn't put a topic graphic up there, but I do want to talk a little bit about Jackson Dart. Jackson Dart, as y'all know, has been under scrutiny because last week he took part in a rally for President Donald Trump. Now, he introduced Donald Trump, and people just were all up in arms and upset about it. And they were just talking about, that was just in bad taste. How can Jackson Dart do this? I mean, even Abdul Carter, his teammate, kind of called him out, said he didn't believe it. I'm paraphrasing here. He said he didn't believe it. He thought it was AI, right? But, Jackson Dart ended up doing that. Now, I'm going to say this. And some people probably get ticked off at me, but it is what it is. Like, you are entitled to vote any way that you want to vote. To root for whoever you want to root for. Like, that's your prerogative. That's why we live in this country, right? I mean, that's why we live in a democracy where people can be able to be free to do whatever the heck they want to do within the parameters of the law, right? I mean, just what it is. People may do things that you may not like, but it's well within their rights to do it as long as they're not hurting anyone. Now, here's the thing. When you take of things like politics and religion, it is always going to create a divide because you have so many people that think differently from one another. Like, and I think when it comes to Jackson Dart, he put himself in a position where his teammates would have to analyze and break him down in a way that you don't want your teammates to do that. Now, if we're on the field and you overthrowing passes left and right, okay, break it down. If I'm up here threading a needle and I put it between two defenders, you catch it for a touchdown, let's talk about it. But when it comes to stuff like this, where people are just so emotional about these type of things with politics and religion, I just think that it was just a bad decision by Jackson Dart. And I don't know who his PR team is, but they didn't do him any service either by allowing him, or even, allowing him to go out on that stage and do that. Because regardless or not, it's just a certain type of energy that goes on around politics these days. And, people don't do their research, unfortunately, when it comes to like certain things, when it comes to certain people. We evaluate people based on their actions, rather like we deem them positive or negative, right? Like, I don't know how we got to this point, but it's just the way that the world is now. You have people that will sit in front of their computers or their phones and maybe look at a person, like, do a podcast or read the news or whatever, right? And they be like, oh man, I don't like that person. Like, never really met them, but it's just the type of energy that they put out. And I'm big on energy. Like, the energy that Jackson Dart brought to the locker room was not a good one. And regardless to what happened afterwards, which Abdul Carter tweeted, he backtracked. I'm pretty sure somebody within the Giants organization probably pulled him to the side and said, hey man, it's not a good look, man. Y'all got to work this thing out. Y'all are the two cornerstone players on the team, right? Both of these guys came into the NFL at the same time. Abdul Carter was the second overall pick for the Giants. And then we know later on, Jackson Dart became a member of the Giants when the Giants moved back into the first round to obtain him. But at the end of the day, they didn't want that type of energy. And I just don't believe that was the right decision for Jackson Dart. And some people are, taking shots at his character. Like I said, I don't know the dude. I don't know him, but I do know when you are the face of a franchise playing a quarterback position in one of the biggest media markets in the entire country in New York, you got to make sure that you got to move a little bit differently. And unfortunately, your boy, that wasn't the right move, in my opinion. I mean, because it created a divide within the locker room. It's kind of like similar to, with the whole situation about, the national anthem and stuff like that. I mean, and we know about when it came to the Saints. We had Malcolm Jenkins, who was critical of Drew Brees during that time. So, I mean, as great as Drew Brees was, like it still made a teammate feel a certain type of way. So when you're the face of a franchise, I just think that you have to be mindful of that. And, and I will even say this. When you look at a person's character and see how much they have done throughout the years, you can kind of like look and say, I don't know about that, but I mean, I don't think you should hold that against them because of their body of work. But when you look at a guy like Jackson Dart, I mean, he's going into his second year. Nobody really knows what he's going to be just yet. He shows flashes of brilliance at times, but you still haven't established yourself enough for you to be making that type of decision for people to try to give you any wiggle room or leeway. So I just, like I said, I don't, at the end of the day, you vote for who you want to vote for, like who you want to like, but understand, like, when you're in positions of leadership, sometimes that can affect the way that people look at you. Bro, no matter what, wish everyone would stick with sports, no matter who they support. Well, look, man, it's never going to be that way, Dalton. It's never going to be that way because people have something to say. And, you have this thing called more than an athlete. Like these guys go out there and they do some extraordinary things, jump high, they able to catch passes, they able to contort their body in certain ways that we can't even imagine. But at the same time, when they take the helmets off, the shoulder pads off, they're human beings. And they feel like, just like if we sitting in a barbershop or we're sitting on a bus or we're, in close proximity with each other and we're just talking about sports or we're talking about life, like they feel like they should be able to do the same thing. And they should. But here's the difference. With great power comes great responsibility. Like, you are a public figure. So the leeway that they might give Joe Blow at the barbershop, they're not going to give to a guy like Jackson Dart. They're going to hold on to every single word because they're going to want to write that down. They're going to want that to be the topic of conversation because of who you are. But as long as you have the social media platforms and you have these players, because think about it, man. Think about all these players that you watch on television. Now you're seeing them doing podcasts. You see them starting media companies, all this stuff. So they're trying to put themselves out there to let people know, man, I'm more than just a 40-yard pass. I'm more than just a one-hand snag, right? So you're going to get that now. I mean, you can whisper that, Dalton, but I just think that guys being quiet and complicit, or like not really saying anything because they care about their brands, I just think that that's just a dying breed. Like, we think about Michael Jordan, right? Michael Jordan. People wish that Michael Jordan, growing up in Wilmington, North Carolina, which was a rural city in North Carolina, the way he grew up, they felt like he should, be able to back certain representatives, but Jordan didn't do that, right? I mean, now you have people today that look at Jordan a different way when it comes to him taking a stance in certain political things. But you wonder to yourself, would Michael Jordan have been Michael Jordan on the scale that he was if he would have got himself involved in certain things where people would be divided? Like, he didn't really do that. If you didn't like Michael Jordan back in the 90s, it was just the fact that you just was a Knicks fan or something, like a team that your team just couldn't get past him. But for the most part, everybody liked Michael Jordan. But like I say, you got to be mindful of those type of things. I'm not saying being quiet, but you got to be able to stand on business, man, when it's all said and done. I'm going to read like 3 more comments, then I'm going to go ahead and get up out of here, folks. Says Dual Carter was the 3rd pick. I appreciate that, Dalton. I know it was the second. I said 2nd pick, 3rd pick, yeah, in last year's draft. Says a little late coming in. Who that, baby? Brent, appreciate you for being here. We almost wrapping it up, man. You're almost wrapping it up. Got something else I have to do after this, man. I actually have to do an interview after this. Says I would also say running backs don't know what's going. With AK, we signed ETN. Miller can't stay healthy, and Devin Neal was rookie last year. Yeah, man. Look, I think that as long as Alvin Kamara can stay healthy, that offensive line be able to hold up, I think that him and HN can be a really good 1-2 punch. And I think that would be really good for the Saints. I think that would be good for Alvin Kamara at this stage of his career. But thank you all so much for checking out the Straight Up TJ podcast. I really do appreciate your time. Once again, my name is TJ Jones. I ask that you subscribe to the channel. Make sure that you hit that like button. You can follow me on X at TJAY Jones 8. And also be on the lookout later on tonight on Sleeper Saints. I'm asking everybody to subscribe to the Sleeper Saints podcast channel. Got a new video that's going to be coming out later on. I just recently recorded that. It's just a matter of me actually having to upload it. But hopefully you all check it out. We talked a little bit about Chris Olave's contract. Derek Carr giving a little bit, I guess, of a apology or showing some, talking about his biggest regret as a member of the Saints. He talked about that. We broke that down. And I just ask that you all go on over to the Sleeper Saints podcast channel. I'm going to go ahead and put that link inside of the comments. If you have not subscribed already, please do so. That video will be out later on this evening. And until next time, I'll see you down.
DJ, yeah. Straight up. Let's go. Welcome to Straight Up TJAY. Tap in, sit back, press replay. Been locked in with the Saints on a weekday. Now we talking every sport, every big play. Years on the grind, now we level up the view. From the dome to the world, get a better look at you. No script.